Welcome to this week's Take Charge of Your Life live discussion. Well, discussion, where we talk about how to live healthy, live empowered, and live free. I'm Tish Taylor from Growth Centric Living, a mindset coach and personal transformation guide. And this is my co-host, Roberta.
Hey everyone, I'm Roberta, and I am a holistic health practitioner and a personal transformation specialist that really focus on helping people transform in every area of life. So mind, body, and soul transformation.
Both Roberta and I met by being elite mentorship trainers under the guidance and after studying with our mentor, Peter Sage. So our plan here for these discussions is that we'll show you a video by Peter. He is a world-renowned behavior expert, TED Talk speaker, and a best-selling author. And who is currently completing or just completed this incredible inspirational journey that we got to focus on and watch called The World's Toughest Row. So we're going to show you one of his clips. We encourage you to check him out, and then we're going to discuss his teachings in our format, which is trying to give you a tip on how to live empowered, live more healthy, and live free.
Awesome. So the title of the little video clip that we're going to watch is called The Non-Negotiable Games of Life.
You've often heard that life is a game, but it doesn't feel like a game to many people. Why? Because they don't know the rules. In fact, one of the best-selling books of all time was The Game of Life and How to Play It. But is life really a game? Well, there are many facets to life, but there are really only 3 games that are non-negotiable that you need to master. Many games are choices. You can choose the family game. It's an option. You can choose the spiritual game. It's an option. There's no downside if you choose not to play it. But the 3 games you need to master in life, or they're going to master you, are the health game. If you don't make time for health, you'll have to make time for illness. It's the relationship game. We're social creatures. If you don't know how to master building good relationships, you're always going to suffer from the outcome of being on the wrong side of a poor relationship, or wonder why everyone else has friends. And then the other game, obviously, is the money game. We live in a Western capitalistic society where economy rules. So if you don't learn how to master money, it's going to master you. Master those 3 games, and life suddenly becomes a big game.
Okay, so to sort of reiterate those 3 games in no particular order, we have the money game, which I'm sure all of us have experienced to this point. We have no choice but to deal with money. It's part of our physical world. It's the currency of life these days. It's what we exchange. So there's no getting out of that game. The relationship game, we are not alone in this world. Rather, we're social creatures by design. So you can choose the types of relationships, but you're still having relationships with other people one way or another. And then lastly, the health game, which we all are physical by nature, at least a good part of us, or the part that we see the most and deal with. So therefore, if you don't take care of your body, of our physical health, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with illness or breakdown of some sort. It doesn't function properly if we don't take care of it. It's like going in a car and never putting gas in it or driving it anywhere. It's going to deteriorate. That's what the health game is.
Yeah. So when we jump, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, if we put that in terms then of our first category, which is living empowered and mindset. Okay. Mindset is part of all 3 of these games. How we think and feel and perceive ourselves and in relationship to these games is oftentimes affecting our outcome.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I thought of was that, playing these games for many people and for myself for many, many years was survival. They didn't feel like fun games for sure. Because I literally would say that myself. I don't know the rules. Like nobody taught us how to do certain things, they was just kind of thrown out there and you just figure it out, sink or swim. And it's a lot of stress and just feeling like you're never quite accomplishing or getting where you want to be, kind of always on the back foot. So becoming aware that these three games need to be, we need to wake up to the expansion of what we're doing so that we can live better lives, not just recreating the same cycle of disempowered living in these areas, has been a real game changer for myself, to have a whole different mindset around these games and know that life can be fun, and it can be, joyful, I guess, like it was meant to be, not just surviving, but that we're actually playing the games we're in charge of them now. We're not just being, victims or subject to the outcomes of someone else's game, maybe.
And that's a big part of the mindset, right? That for me, the big shift came in realizing that I have a choice, right? In a game, you have choices. You have a choice to play, how you play, how competitive maybe you are, if we're referring to like a board game or different sort of traditional games, right? Who you access for help and what powers you use. And I didn't realize any of that was a choice, that we could strategize in these games, not just that we're forced, into things, that things just are what they are. So if we kind of even reiterate that mindset further in talking about our thoughts, examples like saying things like, I'm bad with money, automatically negates yourself based on your mindset from the options of feeling rich and therefore being rich in the game, right? Like in other games, if you start playing, you're like, oh, I'm stuck at this. I'm not really that good at this. What are your chances of winning, right? We talk about mindset, especially in sports, when we look at those games, right? Any underdog going in feeling like they're already going to lose probably they've lost the game before they even left the locker room.
Yeah. And I think with money, we talked about that the media, is so influential on programming us to think we have to spend money, we have to keep up with everyone, we have to look a certain way. It feeds a lot of compulsions, even with food and things, where there's always constantly commercials and restaurant commercials, and always an invitation to celebrate around food and drink and even alcohol. And so there's always something to constantly be throwing our money at, and not realizing that we can, not be programmed by culture and by what everyone else is doing, and make wiser choices for our finances to feel more in charge of that, that part of our life.
Many of us being brainwashed into our subconscious of, ways to play that game, just like you can from other aspects of your environment. Like, again, if we use the sports analogy, if your parents told you that you would never be good at it and you can't play this, well, then, what's the chances of you growing up and really wanting that as a career, being good at it? And the media does that to us on a subconscious level too, especially since there's this addiction to it, and we're so influenced without even realizing these things. And that's a big part of keeping us feeling like we are limited, like you always like to say, and that we don't have as many choices. We're afraid of everything, and we need to compete against others. I think if we specifically talk about kind of the news and the media and how it's affecting our mindset and our thoughts in comparison to all three of these games, the money game was the obvious. You kind of mentioned that one already, Roberta, on it's telling us, what to spend our money on. In health realm, the media and the news are heavily influencing and pushing things like pharmaceuticals, and food is cheaper if you buy the really processed version of it. So, save money, kind of money and health together there in some of that programming. And then lastly, in the relationship game, in giving us the illusion that we are separate. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we hit our third portion of this talk today in talking about living free. But the idea that we're separate and we're instead in competition with each other instead of being more of a communal group, we're always comparing, and what does this person think, and what will this person think, and what we would call trying to stay in the good opinion of other people. That really affects our mindset and how we play all three of these games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we think about the health game, the second area, the living healthy part in our bodies, that's a huge area because really health is probably the most important game that any of us could play, or at least which probably should be our priority, because without health, nothing else matters. There's people who are millionaires and billionaires and don't have health, and they really can't, be a part of life. They can't embrace life. And so health is, of course, to me, it's a huge priority because it's my passion and it's what I do, and I've healed myself. So I'm very, aligned with that and very focused on that. And I do get to play this in a fun way now. I know how to stay well. I know how to eat. And there's no work and effort and striving or fear involved. I think before I played this health game, I just ignored my health to a big, great degree, thinking, well, if I just ignore it, everything will be fine if I just don't think about it, kind of like denial. And, but once my health failed, then I was forced to look at it. And, I used to think it was too costly to invest in my health. I have 4 children when they were younger. And it's like, how do I, take care of them homeopathically or nutritionally and purchase all the supplements? And I just had this real scarcity mindset around health. And yet now I realize that, our health is so critical. And 2 of my children are kind of ADD, ADHD type, behaviors. And had I known how to balance their system and give them the right minerals and calm their system down with fish oils and different things, their lives would have been less chaotic. They'd have gotten less trouble at school. They would have just had a different world had I known how to balance their physiology at that time. So, health affects every single area of our life. And of course, without it, yeah, we just don't have a life, really. We don't have a vibrant quality of life.
Well, in today's day and age, we're sort of, again, programmed and kind of taught to be more reactive to life, that we want, instant solutions to all of these problems that are coming up, instead of learning that, we are playing a game. So thinking about our strategy and being proactive to the health game before issues come up actually saves us a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of heartache. And that's something that has really shifted in me over the last few years as I start to age in calendar years. And my birthdays, a number of times I've made it around the sun here. I'm thinking, I want to experience so much more. So that idea of being proactive and taking care of my physical body in playing this game more full out and learning to be better at this game so that I can experience so much more of this world and the things that I'm passionate about.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I tell people every time they say yes to eating something poor, I mean, as a rule, and they continue to eat that way and choose things that are causing degeneration in their health, they're saying yes to big pharma. And so many people say they don't want to be on medications and they hate the side effects, and yet they're not aware enough maybe to realize that something has to shift then in their other choices. Our body's biologically designed the same way. We all have the same dynamics, and it's designed to run a certain way and run on certain fuel. And without that fuel in the body, or putting in the dirty fuel, the wrong fuel, it has to break down. I mean, there's just no other way that it could, function. It's just the way it was designed. So really making choices to, make your health a priority and realize that you can't have it both ways, really. We have to choose health or we have to choose illness. There's really no in between.
Yeah. So our action step, are we ready for that in this realm or this part, our live healthy part of our talk is to encourage you to make health a priority, and the rest will be better inherently. I guess one of the things we didn't mention in here too, when we talk about health specifically, is the interrelationship with the other games, that it's difficult to have good relationships if your health is poor, because you're constantly worrying about your body and trying to figure that out, or you're tired or irritable. How do you build good relationships when you're feeling that way, when your physical health is functioning in that matter? Or money wise, if maybe I'm in Canada and Roberta's in the United States, so we talked before this that I actually thought it was worse there, but I think we have similar situations where if people aren't taking care of their health, then financially this can become a huge burden. uh, on yourselves in, having to pay for other medical care, either pharmaceutically, which just, as we sort of talked about sometimes, can make your health worse because of the chemicals that are uh, included in there, and beds or all the other assistive medical devices that you might need, the testing even, or in surgeries and etc. You can see where this can snowball into a huge financial aspect as well, which is again why we say that your health game is the priority. And our tip is to make it so.
So our last area is the live free area, and it's the soul realm, and how we can relate all this to our inner world, basically, and our relationship with ourself is really the foundation of everything in our life. Again, if we don't love ourselves and we don't value ourselves and we don't see ourselves for the magnificence that we really are, it's really hard for other people to see us that way, because it's almost like we are attracting the way we are. We attract people that are who we are, basically. So it's so critical that we can, in order to live totally, truly free, we have to be able to love ourselves and allow others really in, and allow others to love us. Otherwise, we're just putting up walls and barriers, and we're not going to have that community and that relationship that we all absolutely need, to live on. We can't live without it. It's critical to have community in our lives. So I think that's a huge deal that in our culture today, people are very isolated, very independent, lots of people that aren't connected. There's a lot of fragmented families, and it's a really painful area. It's probably obviously the most painful area of our lives is, relationship issues. So it's really a critical thing to focus on, to play that game and to level up and to really, heal ourselves so that we can, take responsibility, take charge of where we choose to have relationship and how we choose to have it.
Like I said, level up, because it made me think of how your relationship with yourself is kind of that first level of this game. This is sort of like step one, if we think of like a Mario Kart or a video game sort of thing, right? Stage one is to master yourself. And for me, if I can share, I know that in my intimate relationships, I looked a lot for somebody that would prioritize me. But by default, because I didn't prioritize myself, I couldn't find that, because you know what? I never said what I actually wanted. So how could that person give me what I wanted when I never said that? I was always the person that was like, oh, it's okay. Whatever you want, instead of vocalizing it. And then later on, without really assessing myself and realizing that I was looking for them to give me something that I wasn't even giving myself. And it's not their fault. In order for me to get that out of a relationship, I need to give it to myself first. I need to connect with my inner world and, my source and my energy, and figure out what I authentically want and what I stand for, and how to love and accept myself so that others could do that as well. And so that I could draw those sort of boundaries so that I could have relationships that were healthy in that way.
Yeah, that's very well said. This last year or so, with all the personal development work I've done and working on relationship, I'm in a relationship program now called Archetypal Relationships, and it's just deep. It's a deep dive into the workings of each human and how our operating systems work and why we do the things that we do. And one thing that came up for me is that I didn't know my own worth, and so I was attracted to people who didn't know my worth either. I didn't, like you said, I didn't project that worth out and say this is what I like and what I don't like as much, and I kind of took the other person more than myself. And so if I didn't know my worth, I attracted someone who didn't know it either. And it's really an interesting dynamic how that plays out.
So we talked in depth about level one. I would say the ultimate level, the highest level in this relationship game, is what we will call living free, that soulful journey, which really is about learning to live in harmony with ourselves and with the non-physical and kind of spiritual source realm where all of our energy and our power comes from. And all of that has to do with the relationship game at the highest level potentially. So freedom is what we are all striving for.
Yeah, and I think our tip for this was just that we focus on healing ourselves, like you said, and not trying to change the other person or the other people in our lives. Like, trying to force our outer world to be different than it is. That's really the cause of all stress in our life, is thinking something outside of ourselves should be different than it is. And then usually it's people that we're trying to change and force to change, and blame them if they don't change. And we spend all this energy focusing on the other person, where we could spend that energy on healing ourselves and loving ourselves, and choosing, if someone's abusive or toxic, we can choose then, because we have enough power to choose to go a different direction, to turn away from that, to walk out of that movie scene and into a different one, so that's the empowering part of this focus, is to really, heal ourselves, and yeah, and not make someone else our focus.
So if I could summarize our live empowered or our mindset tip, is to decrease your time or stop completely with the news and the media. I know for me, as far as mindset goes, this was a significant change for me. I personally listen to the media very little. So that's our tip there, in helping you create better mindsets and understand these games better without being influenced and programmed from the outside world. Under live healthy, we said to make health a priority. That one's sounds simple. It's a one-liner, but not always as easy when we talk about all the other things that are kind of flashy and showing up in front of us. That is a curve to make your health a priority, as we've been talking about throughout all of our discussions. And then finally, to live free, and to choose to work on yourself and your own personal growth in order to improve the rest of your relationship games.
Awesome.
So our quote then is, since we're talking about choice and empowering yourselves, is from the band called Rush and their song Free Will. Some of you may have heard it. And one of the lines says, "If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice." So we hope that you choose to play all three of these games to the best of your ability, and seek resources like ourselves and other books and education system to help you be better players, to strategize at these three games, because we're all playing them no matter what. Either you're playing the money game, the relationship game, and as physical human beings, we're definitely all playing the health game.
Excellent. Thank you, Tish. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. And we appreciate interacting and just sharing our hearts with you and our focus for better lives.
Yeah. Hope you liked this week's Take Charge of Your Life discussion. See you next week.